first of all, we have a common perception of reality. Anne Sullivan and Helen Keller, they know perceived water as the same thing. The qualities of water were the same for Anne Sullivan and Helen Keller. Without this grounding of this basic diagram, the pattern of reality in which the characters, the properties of things are real and can be perceived as real for all sorts of interpreting minds, this is fundamental. This is what grounds perception and then communication. Let's start remembering that so far we have agreed that the immediate object is like a diagram of all possible relations, and the immediate interpretant is how this diagram evolves in time. So actually the immediate object is what we call space, and the immediate interpretant is all the transformations space suffers as semeiosis goes on. So the immediate interpretant is time. This is important because this is how Peirce explained or gave a solution to the problem of the synthetical judgment a priori. Space and time are not a priori categories anymore, but they are embedded in the semiotic process. So actually, they are the basis of semeiosis. The phoneme where the sign pops up, where the sign appears as a possibility. Without the immediate object and the immediate interpretant, there can be no sign as being noted, as appearing to reality. So this is the phoneme. The phoneme is everything which is in anybody's mind. And this mind is not something which is inside a brain, but the mind is a relation, how our minds relate to the patterns of reality. So Helen Keller had a very shortened umwelt, which is this sort of relation of her mind to all possible signs that she could note, perceive. And the challenge of Anne Sullivan is how she could show Helen Keller that reality can be transformed into a more developed sign, which is a symbol, which is a concept, and this concept can be used for communication. So the challenge was how, from the perception, the grounding of immediate object, immediate interpretant, from the pulse of perception, how we perceive our umwelt or the appearance of the world, how can we synthesize concepts, symbols, and then use the information that is in these symbols to perform communication. Now, from something very fundamental in Helen Keller's life, which is the necessity to drink water, Anne Sullivan showed her by scratching the word water several times. Anytime she would perceive water in all possible states, situations, Anne Sullivan would scratch on the palm of Helen Keller's hand the word water. Now, the scratching of the word is done in space and time, is a diagram, is a sensation, it is a perception. So when you repeat several times this scratching, you are introducing a form, a habit. Now this habit is thirdness in the immediate object and thirdness in the immediate interpretant. Now the sensations of water, the perceptions of water are also habits, and they are thirdness in the immediate object and thirdness in the immediate interpretant. So we have two solenoids which have the same fundamental structure. They are patterns of space-time. Space-time patterns of scratching the word water on the palm of Helen's hand, and the pattern of experimenting water by perception whenever water appeared in Helen Keller's umwelt. So the thing is how we fuse these two solenoids, which are both thirdness in the immediate object and thirdness in the immediate interpreter. When we fuse them by association, by comparison, we create a metaphor. And then we see that the water, the sensation of water, becomes the dynamic object. And what is felt by water becomes the dynamic interpretant. And the immediate object and the immediate interpretant is the scratching of the word water on Helen Keller's hand. Now you see that by putting together the two diagrams, by performing an association, we create a metaphor, and the metaphor is the seed of a concept. So we have here a diagram which is water in all its sorts of possible manifestations, and we have here the scratching in Helen Keller's hand, which is another pattern. And when we put these two diagrams in relation, we see that since they are both patterns, both have information, and then we create a relation by which the sign can gather information from the dynamic object and pours this thirdness, this form, from the dynamic object to the immediate object. So there is a flow of information in which the sign, as it tries to develop itself towards its final interpretant, is gathering information, the form of the dynamic object, and depositing it in the immediate object. This is the basic flow of any logical association, because it is the consequencia of ines. You say, if this, then this. So this is the predicate. The immediate object is the ground of predication. The immediate object is the relation of all sorts of qualities, of properties, and as information passes through sign and is deposited, so to say, in the immediate object, we see how predication develops, grows, and that's how sign develops, by enlarging its possibility of being noted, of being predicated in reality. So whenever this is going on, Helen Keller's Umwelt is growing